I had a client. I walked through her condo, was valuing it, and she had a beautiful old guitar there, and I happened to mention to her that she should take care of that because it's an antique and it's worth quite a little bit of money. So she asked how I knew about guitars, and I told her that I built them. Well, a month later, I got a call from someone named Lois Hickman. Had no clue who Lois Hickman was. But she told me that she wanted me to go to Nicaragua and teach people how to build guitars.
I would really like to do something that would enliven the cultural life of a city like Jalapa. And I knew that people would love to have guitars.
She explained the project, and she explained what was happening in Nicaragua. I remember the war, of course, the history of it, that kind of thing. And I asked her who she was working with, and she said...
The Guitar Workshop was sponsored by a nonprofit organization I'm part of called Act with Genius, which is based in Colorado.
Well, my son had done a project with Act with Genius. He had, his band had gone to do a number of different concerts and gigs and gave the money toward building a school in Uganda, in a war-torn area of Uganda. So that was fascinating to me, and then that led credibility to her because I knew that Abram had worked with them.
And so I thought, why not give them the opportunity to learn from a master guitar maker?
My name is Fabio Ragghianti. I come from Italy, and I've been making guitars for 25 years.
So that a few people could learn how to make excellent, beautiful, wonderful sounding guitars that they could be proud of. Not just anything, but something that would be beautiful and useful and part of their culture.
So I asked Abe about it, and he was excited about it. He wanted me to go, and he wanted to go too. So we ended up going to Nicaragua.
My ex-student from Boulder, Mike Moger, asked me if I wanted to do this class, and I said yes.
If you're going to choose a musical instrument for Nicaragua, it's the Spanish-style classical guitar. And so, since that was the style that I built, and since we had the plans, we had the tools, all that kind of thing, it was a perfect match. So that you could go to Nicaragua, not add to or change the existing culture, but to create small economies that would grow from there using the culture that existed there already. Basically, it came down to two separate trips. The first trip was a fact-finding trip. I needed to find out, number one, that there were people who wanted to learn. I needed to choose the students. Number two, I needed to find out if anyone already knew how to build a guitar and to build off of that knowledge and that shop, those tools, that kind of thing. Number three, I needed to know what tools they had and what tools they did not have so that we could figure out what we needed to supplement them with when I came down for the class. And when I went to Nicaragua to look around, there were not very many guitars. And the guitars they had were just terrible. Many of them were Chinese-made, very, very cheap instruments that were made out of plywood and laminated materials. Also, the ones that were there that were actually made of wood were pretty beat up and in some serious need of repair. So to build an economy, to build a business around repairing guitars and building guitars and selling them made all the sense in the world. Number four, we had to find a space. And we did find a space in Adarosa's hairstyling shop. She had an extra room that had been a veterinary clinic at one time. Concrete floor, hardboard walls, 2 lights, and that was it. But that was all we needed really for our needs. And number five, what we needed to do was we needed to bring plans and designs, how-to information on how to build some of the tools that the students could build themselves.
He brought many tools, and it was just hand tools, because here the electricity goes off pretty often.
The following trip, I went down to Jalapa. My son Abram came with me on that trip. I stayed for 2 weeks and started the class. Fabio arrived a week after we arrived. So I stayed 2 weeks. Fabio stayed 2 weeks, and we overlapped 1 week, but Abram stayed the whole 3 weeks during that period of time.
Mike Moger was here before me, and he started organizing things. So without him, 10 days would not have been enough.
The three men came down, did some investigation, met with a lot of people, found five men who were interested and dedicated enough to spend 3 weeks of their life learning how to make beautiful guitars.
I had 5 students and let's say almost 6, because our translator has started making a guitar too.
One of the students that we found and that we taught was from the school in Granada, and that school takes kids off the streets, feeds them, teaches them, educates them, and he was the crafts teacher. And so he obviously would plug whatever he learned in our workshop into the school and would teach the craft of building guitars in southern Nicaragua. The other 4 were all from Jalapa, and 2 of them actually had built guitars before.
The 5 guitars of 5 official students are made of woods that Mike Moger brought.
If you look at a guitar, the single most important part of the guitar is the soundboard. That's the whole front piece of wood. It's only about 2 millimeters thick. And it's made out of a wood. This one is the first guitar that I built with Fabio, in fact. But this one is actually not a spruce, which is what you usually see. This one is a cedar, a red cedar. And the reason for that is that the fiber of the wood carries tones better than about any other wood there is. So I would say half of the good classical guitars out there are made out of red cedar. They don't have red cedar in Nicaragua. So that's why we need to get some good tone woods down there. The tone woods always go into the soundboard. And it's very critically important that you get the right piece of wood. There are different grades, and so you'll pay a lot of money for the best tone woods. This is a circle cutter. You would drill a hole into the guitar and into your base that you rest the guitar on, the form that you build. And you put this down into it, and there's a little cutter here that you raise and lower that will allow for you to cut the circle out, the sound hole, and also if you use this right at the specific and very important, don't go too deep, please, depth, you can cut out the wood for the rosette, and then very carefully with a chisel you shave out everything and you inset your rosette. There's one thing that most people don't realize when they're looking at a guitar, and that is that this is not a flat top. The soundboard is not flat. If you look at the guitar and look at it from the end, you'll see that this is convex. Okay, it's not flat. And this is convex. And it has to be a specific angle. You can't make it too convex and you can't make it too little. And in fact, the bend here is different from the bend on the soundboard. Anytime that you look on the inside of a guitar, you will see that there is a whole skeleton of fans and braces on the inside that is used to hold that shape. All of these things are cut from different species of wood, different weights of wood, that kind of thing, and it's used specifically to hold that shape and to carry that vibrational tone throughout the entire soundboard.
Yeah, when it's good, besides.
The back of the guitar also has some of this, but not nearly as intricate. It's much simpler. It simply has to hold the shape. It doesn't have to carry any of the tone. We cut the entire neck out of one single piece of wood. Under and mahogany is what we use. We do not laminate and glue chunks of it together. We don't cut this off at an angle and then turn it around and glue it back on to save wood. We actually take this out of one piece of wood, this whole neck, and you inset it in such a way that it's structurally sound.
he forgot some tools, and I had to find a way to invent something for those lacking tools, but we made it. Para el sonido. Claro. Esto sí. De la niña. Ahora sí aquí todo. Escucha madera. Sí, va a tener buen sonido. Acuto. Sí. Tiene que ser más bajo. Más bajo. La tónica de la ahí. Hey, ¿tenés afinada esta tónica? Sí. Los instrumentos de viento, lo que es sonido así, hablando de tambor y todo eso, se afinan con la tónica de la. Sí, ahora la pega está más claro. Puede ser.
This is a clamp that you use, that you put over the headstock, such as this one. You put it over the top and you clamp it down, and you drill holes through these holes so that the holes are positioned just perfectly for your tuning machines. One of the things that we did while we were there is we helped the 5 builders and their families set up a colectivo. That colectivo would be similar to a guild in the United States, a group of craftsmen, artisans who get together, share tools, share knowledge, share space, and share marketing for the craft that they build. That colectivo took possession of all the tools that we brought, that kind of thing, so that they have a foundation from which they can spring. We also taught those 5 builders for free, and we fed their families while we were there so that they wouldn't go back into the tobacco fields and work because they had to feed their families. This is not the United States. This is a survival kind of a situation that some of these people are living in. One of the requirements of taking the class and learning to build a guitar and getting to keep the guitar after the class was that they would have to teach someone else how to build a guitar also. On the fact-finding trip, I asked a lot of questions, and I needed to know what tools they had, how much expertise they had. And he said that he built a fine guitar. This is Pablo. He said he built a fine guitar, but it didn't last very long. He had trouble with it after a while. And I noticed that he didn't have any binding or purfling around the perimeter of the guitar. You have to picture this piece of wood as being a collection of straws, because that's how the living tree nurtured itself. It sucked up the nutrients and the moisture from the ground up through these fibers, through these straws, and up into the tree. It will continue to do that even though the tree has died. So if you don't cover up all of the end grain and put a finish on it, just to be sure that there's absolutely no chance of moisture getting in there, just the humidity in the air, then the soundboard will grow, it'll expand, and it will contract and shrink during times of high and low humidity, high and low temperatures. So it's critical that you have a very nice tight binding and purfling around the perimeter of the guitar, as well as around the back of the guitar, because the back side also is the same. This is a router, actually. It's called a Grammel. But this, very simply, is the cutting tool that we use and that the guys down in Jalapa use for cutting out the channel in which the binding and the purfling will rest. You can see again on this guitar that there is a piece of wood, happens to be maple here, that is a binding, and then there are strips of decorative wood in between the soundboard and the binding called purfling. And this cutter can be used to go around the perimeter of the guitar and cut out that channel. And it takes a lot of strength to cut that out because, again, the sides of the guitar are a very hard wood, generally speaking. Also, I asked Pablo, what kind of finish do you put on your guitars? And he said, oh, we use the oil from the chicken butt. What do you do then? You know, I mean, what oil from what chicken? But I asked Eddie to follow up on that, and I found out that in the chicken, in the anatomy of the chicken, there is a gland next to the anus of the animal that a chicken will peck and take the oil from that gland before it rains, and will preen its feathers to protect it because the chickens are outside all the time. I did not know that. Well, I also would never finish one of my guitars with the oil from a chicken butt. So I knew that we had to do some work on finishing the guitars, and that if we taught them how to put on a nice French polish finish on a guitar, that they would last a whole lot longer than 3 or 5 years.
When we do the French polish, we cannot talk of coats, like if we use a brush or a spray gun. We're not talking about coats. How many coats?
Layers. No se habla de cuántas capas.
No, because each time I go, I apply the shellac. I apply it, but I also take off. So it's not really one coat and then another. But you keep going until it's dry.
If you're going to build a guitar using just hand tools and you're going to do the whole thing yourself, I spend probably 60 or 80 hours in construction time in building a single guitar. In addition to that, we French polish all of the guitars and we make our own shellac, all of that kind of thing. That's oftentimes another 20 or 25 hours. So there's a tremendous amount of time that goes into building a guitar. If we introduce electric tools to the builders in Jalapa, that will cut their time down tremendously, dramatically. And the quality of the work may improve also, because you will have jigs and setups and stuff like that that will allow for them to bring their tolerances into a tighter frame. And then this is the cutter and saw that is used to set up a perfect 90-degree. These are used in other parts of woodworking, but particular for luthiers, and that cuts the channel that allows for you to inset the frets.
Even a single sheet of sandpaper is an economical problem for them. So they really need orders to keep buying stuff for making all their guitars. But many people stopped at the shop and ask how much is a guitar. So I think that with a little luck they can do good things.
You have a group of people who don't have a lot of money. They don't have a lot of affluence. They don't drive pickups. They don't have insulated homes with windows. But they're happy. Those people are not only gifted craftsmen, hard-working individuals who are eager to learn these things, wanting very much to set up their own business, that kind of thing, but they're just having a blast. I mean, they're really full of joy. One of the requirements of taking the class and learning to build a guitar and getting to keep the guitar after the class was that they would have to teach someone else how to build a guitar also.
So today we had a graduation ceremony, and it was delightful. They brought families and their grandchildren, and we presented them with certificates of graduation.
And I don't know if I will be back one day in this town, but my students will be forever.
Dice que no sabe si alguna vez va a volver de nuevo a este pueblo, pero sus estudiantes van a estar siempre en su corazón.
Pedro Pablo.
Pedro Pablo. Pedro Pablo.
Luis Fernando Guzmán Rodríguez. Movimiento contra los salados.
Se perdió, no. Para por eso no lo
Apolonio Gutiérrez.
Fabio, gracias. Quiere que todos se pongan juntos, hagan su diploma para una foto.
Where they go from here is up to them. They have the information, they know how to do beautiful work, and now it's as if we planted a seed, but it's their responsibility to find the opportunities to continue if they should choose to do so.
My hope is that they can teach, the students become teachers, and they can teach to other makers, so that Jalapa can become a guitar making center, like is Paracho in Michoacán, Mexico.
They followed up and communicated with us after the class that they had each taken on a student, that they had taught 5 more people as a colectivo, and had followed through. So now there are 10 and now more people who know how to and have built guitars in Jalapa. That's important because you want to establish the business of selling guitars.
My hope is that they find a way to use the wood in this area to build their own guitars.
They don't have good soundboard materials, so we're sending them soundboards and some of the fine detail that goes into a guitar, but they're finding the materials themselves first of all. That's number one. If you spend more money building the guitar than you can sell the guitar for, that's not a business. And so we're teaching them some building practices. Number two, I think that for a while there will have to be some guitars that leave Jalapa and come to the United States or other geographies in the world for sale.
Going to places like Managua, Granada, Leon, or other places throughout Central America where the guitars would be appreciated and could be sold for the amount of money they're worth.
But that is the challenge. There must be a market to buy the guitars in other places in Nicaragua, in other places in Latin America, and in other places in the world, because if they don't have those markets, they'll end up with a whole lot of guitars.
El futuro y se fue para El Salvador. Yo opino que hay palabras gastadas, añejas ya cantadas, que no tienen poder. Yo opino, sin embargo, que el pueblo más que nunca hoy es triste.